And good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another broadcast with Barney Davey and myself, Jason Horejs. Barney, how are you doing this evening?
Hey Jason, great to see you as always. I can't believe another month has gone by and here we are again.
Flown by, yeah, and it's been a great and a busy month. I know you've been very busy. I've been busy on this end, and hopefully everybody else has been hard at work as well as we head into the autumn season. It's nice that it's for us anyway. It's nice that it's started to cool down a little bit. We're starting to see better traffic and better sales. Kind of the exact opposite of most people's seasons, where the end of summer marks the end of the art selling season. We're fortunate to have the opposite of that.
And we're heading into the time of the year where you can actually sleep with your windows open, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of beautiful weather out there. So, well, I'm excited about this broadcast this evening. What art galleries won't tell you or don't tell you. And this is a topic that's stirred up a lot of interest. I've gotten a lot of email questions and seen some questions coming across on the Q&A. So we should probably dive right into the subject matter. But as we do, well, let's just spend a minute talking about kind of where the inspiration came from. As everyone knows, Barney and I spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about and hopefully teaching and training artists how to better market and promote themselves and their work. And of course, one of the important ways that an artist can get exposure for their work and get sales started is by working with galleries. And I feel, and Barney, you can chime in on this as well, I feel that there's a lot of either misunderstanding or misconceptions or just a lack of communication a lot of times between artists and galleries, especially artists who are maybe newer into the art gallery world. Kind of learning the ropes, that they maybe don't have a clear understanding or perspective of how the gallery system works, how they're going to build relationships with galleries, and what's expected from them, what they should expect from the galleries. And part of that is because I think galleries are not the most transparent businesses and don't always give an artist a clear inside understanding. So, of course, we're not going to be able to dispel all of the fog of misunderstanding and misconception in the brief time that we have here tonight, but we thought if we could cut into that a little bit, it could lead to some good conversation and also give you some new insight into the business.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Let me give just a little bit of background on myself and my gallery experience, and it segues with what you were just talking about. I spent 20 years working for Decor magazine. It was a magazine that's now out of business, but for 135 years it was...
By no fault of yours, of course.
By no fault of mine. I left. It was after I left that they went out of business, so, you know.
What does that tell you? Yeah, absolutely.
Decor went to art galleries, picture frames, shops, and poster retailers. They also had a trade show called the Decor Expo that had as many as 2,000 exhibitors and 20,000 attendees at one point in the mid-2000s before it all just crumbled under the weight of the internet and other things. But I spent 20 years selling advertising and trade show space and working with art print publishers and artists on how to market their work. So I thought I knew a lot about the art business. When I left there, one of the things that I ended up doing was working in a gallery not too far, maybe a block away from Jason's gallery on Main Street. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. I just did not understand the scope of what it took to run a gallery and to sell a piece of art off the wall or off the floor or sculpture, what have you. It was mind-boggling. One of the gallery owners just said to me one day, here's an example. We have about 100 pieces on exhibit at any given time in the gallery. We have a $5,000 a month rent. That's not lights, insurance, year salary, or anything else. That's just rent. So we look at that. Each piece of art is roughly costing us $50 a month just for the display space. So if you're thinking about your piece of art hanging in if you were having to pay somebody else $50 a month while your art was on display somewhere, you wouldn't be too happy about that. And that's where a big chunk of that 50% goes to, not to mention hiring and training people, shipping the art back and forth, marketing the work, paying for insurance, paying phone bills, paying marketing expenses. There's a whole lot that goes into running a gallery, and for me, I gained this new enormous respect for what it takes to become a successful operating a gallery. I know that there are good galleries and bad galleries, but all of them have overhead, whether they're good or bad, and you just need to get that in your mind. If you're bitter about paying the 50% to galleries, then you just haven't looked at the overall operation of the business, and you also haven't looked backward at yourself to say what's going to cost me to sell this piece of art. It's not free to sell art, no matter whether you're selling it out of your inventory or giving it to a gallery to sell.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great kind of segue, this idea that that there is a cost involved for galleries, obviously, and an overhead to sell the artwork. It's kind of a great segue into what I kind of outlined as one of the first topics, and one of the things that galleries maybe aren't eager to talk to, certainly with their collectors, and in most cases not with their artists either, and that is that it is a very capital-intensive and very expensive business to be in, and that a lot of galleries, struggle. I think a lot of times artists have this vision of galleries as being these, just money-making machines, and that the owners are all driving around Maseratis and trying to take advantage of the artists and their work, and that maybe somehow it's not fair. And certainly there are some galleries out there that have been around for many years and are very successful and do generate a lot of revenue. But in most cases, the galleries that you're going to visit and encounter and potentially work with are going to be family-run operations. My gallery is a great example. My wife and I opened the gallery together almost 13 years ago. And really poured a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifices into getting it off the ground, and to a certain extent, if you want to be successful, you almost have to cultivate this vision of your gallery as already being successful, and certainly to your collectors, you want to give them the sense that you are selling a lot of artwork and being very successful. That helps you in the sales process. You never want to be moaning or groaning to your collectors, and so I think that it's just a good idea to keep in mind that it is a little bit of a risky, well, not a little bit, it's a lot of risky business. A lot of galleries don't make it more than just a few years. A lot of gallery owners maybe are not as business savvy as they could or should be. And so from an artist's perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of do your homework, and as you're thinking about working with a particular gallery, try and get to know the owner of the gallery, talk to some of the other artists who are showing there, and keep in touch with that gallery so you have a really good sense of how the business is going, and hopefully a little bit of an early warning system in place in case things don't go the way you want them to. And certainly over the last few years, with the economy struggling, galleries have certainly had a hard time. But I maintain that the galleries are still a great way for an artist to multiply themselves and increase their exposure. And is there some risk involved? Yes, but there's risk involved in any of the selling techniques or selling channels that you're going to use. And I would certainly keep galleries as a possibility.
I would agree with you. Galleries, yes, they're on hard times by comparison to maybe whatever the peak years were, possibly the late 2000s. Certainly nothing after 2008. But I'll say this: I believe it's true about artists and successful art gallery owners. You're drawn to be in this business that's beyond, in some ways, just financial sense. In other words, most people that I know that are successful artists could probably make more money doing something else because of their work ethic and their intelligence and the knowledge that they have about a whole bunch of other things. And the same thing is true of someone like Jason. He knows how to write in PHP, CSS. He's a savvy internet marketer. There's all kinds of different things that he could be doing that would possibly bring him in a lot more money, but maybe less satisfaction. That the lure, maybe it's like show business, the smell of the grease paint and the roar of the crowd sort of thing. Whatever it is that drew you to become an artist, the same thing to a great extent is true of gallery owners. Very few of them are just in it for the money, and those that aren't, it's not too hard to figure it out quickly that that's their stick, and you want to get away from them as quickly as possible.
And kind of jumping off of that and talking about the process, I think it's one thing to kind of be thinking about. I want to work with galleries. Do I want to be selling that way? And then the next step is, okay, how do I get into galleries, and what's the process for selecting artists? And I think that kind of another little secret of the industry, and what maybe galleries are certainly not publicizing and wanting to give you a different impression, that is that their process for selecting artists to show in their galleries is far more fluid and organic than you might expect it to be. I think that a lot of artists have the misperception that every gallery has some kind of big formal process that they go through where they're jurying different artists, and maybe they have forms that they're using and scoring, and that it's this very scientific process to select an artist to show in the gallery. That's more true of museums and academic institutions that are selecting artists. It's far less true of commercial galleries. And certainly in my gallery and other galleries that I've worked in over the years and had association with, it is often it's simply the owner of the gallery or the gallery director using her or his best judgment and encountering new artwork and going on instinct and gut reaction a lot of times as to what they're going to show in the gallery and where their focus is going to be. And certainly over the years, as I've built my business, I've become somewhat more systematic in the process of reviewing artists, in the sense that I do keep files of artists that I'm interested in. I try and do most of my selection process during the slow season, the summer months, and try and plan out my seasons as systematically as I can. But even then, there are exceptions to my process for reviewing artists. And I think that it's going to serve an artist well to understand that as you're looking to potentially work with galleries, you've got just as good a shot as any other artist does at having a gallery review and accept your artwork. And that being the case, saying that you've got just as good a shot as any other artist, I should also say that shot is the percentages are kind of low. It takes a lot of work and a lot of exposure to get one gallery to say yes to you. And so, if you're looking for gallery representation, you want to be putting your portfolio out in front of as many gallery owners and directors as you possibly can to increase your odds of having somebody say, yes, we want to represent you.
Let's put that in context a little bit. What you just described is any kind of marketing. You and I both sell books, art marketing books, and I can tell you that they don't just fly off the shelf. If I expect to try to sell 100 books, I probably have to get 1,500 messages out there, maybe 3,000 messages or 1,500 messages 5 times. So it's the law of large numbers, really. Galleries are kind of a microcosm because you're not talking about large numbers when you're going to be approaching them individually, but it's large numbers in comparison to the one that's going to accept you and bring you into the gallery. So if you have that mindset that you understand that it's a numbers game, that there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with your art, it's just not fitting at that time. You don't ever get your dauber down and just go sit at home under a blanket and eat Oreos or whatever. You shake off any kind of negative thoughts that you might have had from a poor experience or a failed experience in terms of getting into a gallery, and move on to the next one. The next one could be the one that makes all the difference in the world to you. It could be that fantastic person who falls madly in love with your work and just can't sell it fast enough for you. You never know, and you just can't. You can't give up on that. Jason, you talk about it in the book, and it just makes sense. If you're an abstract artist, you don't want to go to a wildlife gallery. It doesn't make any sense in that respect. So doing your research in advance will help you pare down those numbers so that you're not wasting your time and wasting the time of a gallery owner who just would have no interest in your work because it's not representative of what they show in the gallery.
Yeah, and I think, well, I had an artist recently who pointed me, and I haven't read the book yet, but pointed me to a book that was called Going for the No. And just that title was enough to intrigue me and get my wheels spinning a little bit. And it was applying more to the whole sales process, like you were saying, Barney. But you know, if you do think about it, even if you're at a weekend art festival or a show, you know that you're going to have far greater numbers of people looking at your work than you're going to have buying that work, and so like you're saying, Barney, just being cognizant of that and having an attitude of you know, I'm going to be persistent. I'm not going to take rejection personally. I'm going to develop a little bit of a thick skin and just keep moving to the next one. You know, this business, as much as any that I can think of or more, is really dependent on a lot of serendipity. You know, you having the right combination of artwork and organizing it in a way and showing it in a way that's going to appeal to a particular gallery, and then hitting them at exactly the right time when they're maybe open to the idea of bringing on another artist, and your price points being right. I mean, if you really stopped and think about all of the pieces that have to fall into place to get gallery representation or to make a sale of any piece of artwork, it is a lot of chance that has to happen. And so in order to start having that happen with some frequency, as Barney was saying, you've just got to be really increasing the volume of your marketing activities and putting your work out as frequently and as much as you can, so that you get to that level where you've put enough of it out there to have somebody, the chance start to work in your favor and to get a yes. Next thing that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. You were on a roll there. I have some things to interject at some point, but go forward.
Yeah. Well, my next thing that I had on my list of things that galleries don't tell you is that galleries are rife with favoritism.
Oh no.
Yes, it's true. You know, and I hear kind of variations of the question of, you know, do galleries favor one artist over another all the time? And I think it's just it would be ridiculous to think that they are fair, or that there even is such a thing as being fair in the business. Galleries are going to favor those artists who sell best for them. Logically, I think it makes sense that they'd want to put the emphasis and focus on artwork that's going to generate revenue and profit for them. But they also are going to, you know, especially when it comes to giving a new artist a shot, or you know, putting some added focus on an artist, the relationship that the gallery owner or director has with a particular artist, that is the personal relationship that they have, is going to have a huge impact on the emphasis and the ability to sell the artwork for the gallery. And I think that any artist who's been in the business long enough and has worked with galleries will tell you that there are times where they're showing with a particular gallery and they're selling very, very well out of that gallery. And then one of the salespeople for that gallery moves on to another job or another gallery, leaves the gallery, and suddenly their sales drop dramatically. And even though it's the same work, it's the same audience that's finding exposure, there are just certain times when a salesperson will click with an artist, or a gallery owner will click with an artist, and that those sales will kind of come naturally out of that, and if that isn't there anymore, they can die off. And so with that in mind, it behooves you to try and build good relationships with the galleries that you're working with, to try and create a warm, friendly, very interactive relationship so that you start to get some of that emphasis. Barney, it kind of sounds like every single one of these, I think you could say, oh, you're just talking about marketing.
I don't know how else you sell art without marketing. Here's something that's not necessarily related to marketing, but it's an important issue for artists to deal with, and that is that's framing. Some galleries require. I worked in 2 separate galleries here in Scottsdale. One had its own framing department, and you couldn't bring in any framed art. They'd tell you to take the frame off and take it home. They were going to frame it with whatever they felt worked best. The other gallery required that the artist bring in framed work. That was part of the artist's responsibility. They had a local framer and would take the work to the framer and have it framed for the artist at their rate. They didn't put a markup on it, but if you need to think about that. If you're framing your own work before you're taking it into a gallery, it could be an added expense that you really don't want. It just may not be right for the gallery, or you put too much money into it. Or on the other hand, you think, I really just I can't afford to put the best frame on it, so you put a frame that's not suitable for representing the art as well as it should be, and you cheapen it or dumb it down, and that hurts your results too. So it's an important aspect of it that hasn't anything to do with marketing. It's all about relationships, understanding what the gallery needs, and being fair to yourself and the gallery with regard to framing. Get it right.
Well, and again, it all comes down to communication. And as you're working with a gallery, if you have questions about framing or presentation or sizing or pricing, have that conversation with the gallery owner. It's better to bring it out into the open and make sure you understand what the gallery's interests and needs are, rather than just letting it float around and wondering whether you're doing the right thing or not.
What's your preference?
It all comes down to the artist. My gallery, my physical gallery, tends to be a little bit more contemporary, and so I have very few artists who are framing their work anyway. It's mostly designed to be sold unframed, either gallery wrapped, or I have some artists who are doing collage work. That said, because I don't have a framing business, and you mentioned that there are galleries that have both, but because I don't, and other galleries that don't have framing businesses, I don't want to deal with the issues of framing. I want the artwork to come in. I want to be able to focus on getting it sold as quickly as possible without any complications along the way. So, I insist on all of the artwork that's coming into the gallery being ready to hang and ready to sell, and that means it's framed. And as a consequence of that, the artist is, as Barney talked about, is taking a little bit of risk, because that artist may be putting frame on the piece of artwork that is not going to appeal to me in particular. And it may be that frame that ends up kind of killing my interest in the artwork. But that said, I feel that if you work very hard and have a good framer that you're working with, and get a frame on your artwork that you can be proud of, that excites you aesthetically, you've got a far better chance showing with me than if you're just throwing any old frame on it and trying to cut corners on costs and just put the artwork out there.
It's the Goldilocks theory. You don't want it too hot, you don't want it too cold, you want it just right.
And you'll go crazy trying to figure out which is which.
Well, I would. You don't want it to look cheap. You don't want to, devalue your art because you put a really inexpensive cheap frame on it. On the other hand, you don't want to put on something ornate with all kinds of expense. I'll just stop there. Into the frame when it really is going to detract from the frame. The frame should just enhance the art. It should never overpower the art. So yeah, finding that just right thing, but that's part of being an artist. It's like knowing when to stop. Okay, I've done painting it. I've got the right frame. As we used to say in the gallery that had the framing, we'd stand there and bicker with framing as something to do sometimes during the slow times, and every once in a while we'd get one that looked perfect, and the phrase was, stick a fork in it, it's done. You'd just know. You could see. Boom, we dialed that one in. Having said that, just segue here quickly, having a relationship, if framing is part of your business, then having a good relationship with a picture framer can help you enormously. Most of them are talented. Many of them are artists. The ones that have been around for a long time really know what they're doing, and they'll, especially if you go in slow times, they'll work with you and help you. So we could spend a lot more time on that, but I know there's a lot more we want to talk about. So.
Yeah, I think, though, that you just hit on something very important, and that is that every aspect of this business is about relationships, and being a good people person is one of the most important and most critical skills you can have to build a successful career. Being able to have good relationships with your galleries, but also, as you said, with your framers, with your collectors. Developing your people skills is probably one of the most valuable investments you can make in your career. Number 4, things that galleries don't want.
Quickly, just
oh, sure.
People like to buy from people they like.
There you go. Yeah, and think about this too. Barney says that people like to buy from people they like, and we're thinking about, instantly we start thinking about the end collector, the person who's going to end up hanging that piece of artwork on their wall or put it on a pedestal. But you should also think of your gallery as your customer. In essence, they're the ones that are buying from you. And if they like you, they're going to be more likely to promote, as I mentioned earlier, promote and sell more of your work.
Even that salesperson and the artist who was moving a lot of your work might have come out of a personal relationship.
Most likely, absolutely.
That they developed with you, that you dropped in the gallery, not only didn't ignore the salespeople, spent some time with them, helped them get to know what your art was about, so that if they like your art to begin with, and now they like you, and you spent a little time with them, educating them, giving those little tidbits that just come out naturally in a conversation, that's all people skills, that treat everybody well, it's going to pay off for you.
Yeah, my parents did, and most of you will know that my father is a painter, and my mother is his manager and is now my gallery director. But a number of years ago, they started a program kind of right along these lines of engendering relationships and excitement about selling their work with the salespeople in the galleries they were working with. And this program was very simple. Every time one of the salespeople in one of the galleries that represented my father would sell one of his paintings, that salesperson, not the gallery owner, but the salesperson, would go to a special web page that my parents had set up and could select a small original painting that my father had done, and my parents would send that to the salesperson as a thank you gift. In some businesses that'd be called a kickback, but in this case it was just a little bit of a reward, and salespeople in galleries are often there because they're passionate about selling art. They may not be able to collect a lot of art themselves, and so it makes a big impact for them to get that little original piece of artwork. And you can bet that having received that piece of artwork and knowing that the next time they sell something they're going to get another piece of artwork, you can bet that they're putting their best foot forward and more effort forward in selling my father's work than they might be for some of those other artists. So just a little side note there that you might consider thinking about some kind of award or reward program for your salespeople.
It can even be note cards. Just the act of reciprocity.
Sure.
Is all it takes to endear you to someone else.
And it needs to be sincere and genuine. It can't just feel like some kind of, I'm going to create this program because it's going to make me lots of money. It needs to be, you need to be excited about working with those salespeople and genuine in building your relationships with them. Now, item number 4 that galleries may not want you to know, and that is that a lot of galleries are not that technically savvy. They may not have a lot of technical background. Technology may scare them. And I think that a lot of you will recognize that this is the case if you're working with galleries, that some galleries are more on top of it than others. Some galleries are more organized than others. And you'll notice this if you send them a new piece of artwork. Maybe it takes a long time for that artwork to show up on the website, or it never shows up, or it's got a wrong price on it, or they're slow to respond to emails, or the record-keeping system is not what it should be. I mean, I know of galleries who keep all of their records in notebooks. They don't even have computers. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that necessarily. Some businesses just function better the old-fashioned way and have not gone digital. But it is definitely something that you should be aware of and adapt to. And if a gallery is not doing a great job of keeping their records straight, because they don't necessarily have technical ability, you're going to have to step up a little bit and be even more vigilant in keeping your inventory records straight with those galleries. And I would even suggest that every 4 to 6 months you want to be sending those galleries an updated inventory list of all of your artwork, confirming that their records match yours. It's very important, especially the longer you work with a gallery, to trade records back and forth and just make sure your inventory matches up so that there's no room for confusion or lost artwork or pieces that have been sold that you haven't been paid for, those kinds of things.
Yeah, the gallery that I worked for, one of the galleries that I worked for, they had a decent website, and they had a webmaster who did everything for them. All they did was give them photographs, and the webmaster scanned it and put in all the information. If they had to do that themselves, they would have been in sorry state of affairs. I started putting all of their logs of sales from their artists on a spreadsheet. And after I did the first 2 and took it to the owner, she looked at it and was impressed by what they had sold over the years with these particular artists. And I said, "Do you want me to keep going?" They had maybe, I don't remember, 35 to 50 artists in the gallery. It would have taken me a couple more weeks. She said, "No, I don't want you to spend the money. I don't want to pay you to sit there and do that. I would rather you do something else. The record system that we have works, and that while this is interesting, I don't need the information." She also knew that she was not going to be in the gallery business. She was at the end of running close to the end of her career, so it didn't behoove her to spend a lot of money on technology. Otherwise I would have been very shocked by that. But knowing she had an ulterior motive made sense to me. But if you're a young gallery and doing something like that, then shame on you. You should be taking advantage of everything that you can with what technology offers today, because it's just labor saving, and it gives you great insights and information that you can't ever get out of just running things on a paper log or out of a journal or whatever you're doing old-fashioned way.
That's a really good point. You know, it's very interesting to me. You know, you think you kind of get a sense of what's selling and how things are going. Just being in the gallery day to day, you see what's moving. But as you brought that up, Barney, I thought about earlier this year we ran some reports and figured out the total annual sales for each of our artists, and it was actually very surprising and eye-opening to me. You know, that some of the artists where maybe their artwork sells at a lower average price per item, it was surprising to me to see that despite that, they had sold enough volume that they, you know, were really in the top 5 or 6 of my gallery sales. And you're exactly right, Barney. I felt like that. You know, that gave me some great insight to help me know where to shift some of our focus to what we're going to be thinking about displaying for the next season, and you know, definitely that kind of insight. And I think it's you know, can be a wake-up call to an artist as well, to be tracking as much information about their business as possible. You know, the more you know, knowledge is power, and the more of that kind of information you have available to you, the better you're able to shift your focus and your efforts to where they need to be.
I'll give you a little anecdote about working in a gallery. That it's a heads up for anybody who's working with galleries, and that we midweek one day somebody came in and said, "I'm a friend of so-and-so artist, and she's represented here, and I'd love to see what you have on display for her." Well, at the moment we had nothing on display for her. This can happen. Galleries only have so much display space. They like to move things around to freshen things up, and it wasn't that this artist had been off the wall for a long period of time, but we had taken everything that artist had, that we had for that artist off the week before. We were getting the gallery ready for a new artist. There was going to be an opening, and it just didn't work out that we had a place for that artist's work at that particular time. That was really quite embarrassing. But the heads up here is, if you're working with galleries that are at a distance from you, if you have family members or friends who are going to be in that area, it doesn't hurt to have them drop in the gallery just to keep the gallery owner on their toes that they're actually working for you. You know, the relationship with the gallery and that artist was good enough. They'd sold enough work for that artist over the years that it wasn't a huge stumbling block. But if that had been a relatively new relationship with an artist, that would have been a huge red flag to that artist that, you know, maybe I'm in the wrong gallery here if they're not even going to show my work.
Yeah, we could have a great long conversation about that particular topic, but I think we'll save that for another broadcast. You know, how inventory moves around.
You know, it's just one of those things. It can happen. You can. It
does happen.
But you're right. Let's move on. Just a lot of ground to cover still.
Well, we want to get to questions too. So I've got 2 more quick items that galleries may not want to tell you, and the first is that art galleries are afraid, if not terrified, of your website. They're afraid that your website is going to put them out of business, in essence. You know, that may be the extreme way of looking at it, but they're concerned that by you showing and selling your artwork through your website, that it creates competition for them, and that they can't compete with you. That there's a perception among collectors that they're going to get a better deal if they buy direct from the artist, or even if they're not, even if they're selling at the same price, that there's just some added cachet to a collector meeting an artist directly and selling to them. What I would say to that is that first of all, I'm not suggesting that you not have a website. In fact, I think it would be rather silly not to have a website. You know, it's a great tool that you can use to enhance your marketing efforts, and it can enhance the efforts of your galleries to sell your work. But it puts you at a little bit of an advantage if you recognize the fears that galleries have about your websites, and you work to allay those fears in any way that you can, by reassuring them that you're not trying to compete directly with them, by showing them that your pricing is consistent whether you're showing on your website or in the galleries, and just working to build a relationship of trust so that they look at that website as a tool that they can use rather than a stumbling block to their future sales.
If you're going to be in it together for the long haul, in my opinion, if you have an original piece of art that's in a gallery and it's on your website, the link should be to the gallery. I've known artists who just, even if they sell it themselves, will give the commission to the gallery because they honor that relationship and they know that long term this gallery is going to benefit me in ways and help me sell art in ways that I couldn't do myself. So it's a matter of integrity, and it's a matter of just not gouging yourself and shooting yourself in the foot because you were eager to make a sale. If you're that desperate, then your whole business models may need to be overhauled.
Well, and that's a perfect lead into the last point, that you just as Barney said, you want to be thinking about the long term and your long term success together. The flip side of that is also true, and I think that a lot of galleries, it's not that they don't want you to know this, but I think it's that they sometimes forget, and I think artists can kind of look at this the wrong way too, and that is that, really without you, the gallery would not be in business. Were it not for the artists that I'm showing, there would be no art on my walls, no relationships to be built with collectors. And I think it is very important, as Barney mentioned, to remember that this is very much a partnership that you're entering into with a gallery, and to treat it in that way, you need to not be the timid, I'm afraid that the gallery might decide not to show my work, or feeling that the gallery's in a position of more power than you are, because that's simply not the case in any partnership. Both members of that partnership are dependent upon one another, and I think knowing that can give you more confidence and can help you more successfully navigate the relationship, to come at it from the perspective of, I have something that the gallery doesn't have and can't live without, and that's the art. And the gallery has something that I can't live without, and that is access to the customers and the specialized skill and knowledge to sell that artwork, and the dedication to be there, almost every day of the year, week in, week out, selling that artwork. And I think if both the artist and the gallery keep those things in mind, it's going to be a successful partnership.
Well said. If you don't look at it in that respect, then you can have a successful career without selling in galleries, and maybe that's what you should do. If you're totally distrustful or just can't wrap your mind around how this should work as a mutually beneficial way, then it may be that the gallery system is not for you. And there's plenty of other ways to sell art besides the gallery system. I'm a firm believer that you ought to be in galleries for all kinds of reasons: sales, reputation, credibility, education on your part. But if you're not willing to get into a mutual situation of trust, then maybe that's something that you shouldn't be doing. Are we ready to move on to questions?
We better dive into some questions. We've got some great questions that have come across, either in the Q&A, which if you're watching this broadcast live, you'll notice that on your screen there should be a little button or box that says Q&A. Now, you do have to be signed into Google to be able to type a question in there, either through a Gmail account or a Google account that you've set up in some other way. Or you can email us questions. You can just email me directly at jason@xanadugallery.com. And just be sure and put in the subject line either broadcast or things that galleries don't tell you. Give me some kind of heads up that that's what the question is related to. First question that I'm seeing, and Barney, you can jump in with questions as well, but the first one I'm seeing is from Jonah Liu. And she asks, I've been told that galleries I'm applying to are seeking more established artists. How do I become established? Should I be strongly considering art fairs, etc.? This is the classic chicken and egg problem. You can't get into galleries unless you're established, and you can't get established unless you're in galleries. But I would say that, and this might be another thing that galleries are not going to be very forthcoming about, and that is the fact that basically you are as established as you tell the gallery that you are, as you project yourself to be. You know, maybe a little bit of another insight into the artist selection process is that most galleries are not going to do an extensive background search on you. You know, they're not going to hire a private investigator to go and find, you know, talk to your collectors and find out how well you've been doing. Basically, if you can project to them that I'm a successful artist, I'm creating great artwork, and it's going to sell in your gallery, for most galleries, that's what they need to see. They need to just be excited about the artwork, and as far as they're concerned, you're as established as you need to be. So I wouldn't let that be a crippling factor. You know, I think that a lot of artists are waiting to be established artists, and the only way you can do it is by getting out there and faking it until you make it.
I agree. Don't let the perfectionism get in the way, cause procrastination. Just get out there. If you kite your resume a little bit, I didn't tell you to do that, but I can tell you a lot of artists do. I see a question there from Janelle, which I think is something that a lot of artists deal with. A lot of people in general deal with it. If you have a bad case of nerves, meeting new people, what suggestions do you have to overcome the fear to meet new owners or directors and not come across as lacking confidence? I would say it's the same thing that led you to learn how to draw or paint or sculpt. You didn't start off with your best skill set immediately. You had to learn it. And you can learn the same thing. I talk about it in my book, Guerrilla Marketing for Artists, because I get deeply into networking and local marketing, because I believe it's, as I said earlier, it's easier to sell to people you know. They're the most likely ones to buy. So you need to practice. You need to know what you're going to say in advance so you don't have to think about it. Most of us are not that glib that we can just start shooting from the hip and sound like we know what we're talking about. By practicing, you get better. You learn to look someone in the eye, hold your posture up, smile with your eyes open. If you stutter a little bit, a technique that Marilyn Monroe used and Howard Cosell, former famous sportscaster, used, both of those people were stutterers. Before they spoke, they would just take a small, deep breath and then would start speaking. I don't know whether there's something physiological about that, but it arrests your nervous system in a way so that you don't begin stuttering when you begin talking. And if you practice that, and practice with your family friends, practice when you're at the easel or making your art, so that you begin to feel conversant about something. And then be observant, so that when you're with someone, that you notice things about the gallery, what they're wearing, the kind of day it is, so that you can make a conversation with someone and that shows genuine interest in them. If you practice, you get that 30-second elevator speech down and then anticipate what the next questions will be, you'll be able to answer those in a fluid way that makes you feel much more confident. And you may be shaking in your boots the first 2 or 3 times you go into a gallery or into those kind of situations, but I guarantee if you keep after it, you will overcome those fears and become successful in spite of how you felt initially.
Yeah, practice, practice, practice. And just, I think that was excellent advice, Barney, and I think if you just accept the fact that, hey, I am going to be nervous. I think sometimes people make themselves more nervous by thinking about what can I do not to be nervous? You know, how can I get over it? And I'd say just don't worry about it. I have the opportunity to speak in public quite often, and I used to kind of quake in my boots, I'm sure much like an artist would approaching a gallery. And in the end, it's just the experience and familiarity with that process that starts to quell those nerves, and the more familiar you become with it, the less nervous you're going to be. Now, I had an email question from Suzette, and she asked, and this relates to one of the things we talked about earlier, but I think it touches on an important point. She says, how do galleries prioritize promoting artists based on age, gender, and social skills? And I saw several emails that were kind of around this question of age, and I think that that's, in all likelihood in our audience, we have a lot of you that are, how shall I say it, not fledgling, just out of the nest artists. You're more established, and maybe this is a second career for you. And you rightfully worry, does my age get in the way of my ability to sell my artwork through galleries or through shows? And I think my first response to that is, you can't do anything about your age, so don't let it get in your way. There are a lot of things you can change in your life, but your age is not one of them. And truth be told, is there some age bias out there? Is there some gender bias out there? I would guess that yes, absolutely there is some. But what that means is not that you're going to it's not that you're never going to be able to build a successful career. You're never going to find gallery representation. It just means that you're going to have to be more persistent, and that the number of collectors that you have to talk to, or the number of galleries you have to approach, might be higher than it would be for someone who's kind of fits more of the typical profile of what galleries are looking for, if there is such a thing. But I would also say that you should keep in mind that as an artist with some more years under your belt, that you also come to the plate with some more advantages. You're more experienced. You better understand the world. A lot of you will have the means, either from your other career, whatever the case may be, to allow you to do more traveling, give you more access to galleries. And so there are trade-offs both ways, and I just wouldn't let it stand in the way of you pursuing your goals and your dreams.
Just be fabulous.
Is that all?
That's all you have to be. Then, if you're fabulous, then you don't need to worry about it. I want to put a punctuation point on the thing we were talking about with the previous comment. Go to Amazon and look up Self-Promotion for Introverts. There's an excellent book on that, several of them, in fact, about how to turn that to your advantage. Kate Klingensmith wants to know, are online galleries worth looking into? It's kind of off point a little bit, but the short answer would be yes. Jason's got one. There's plenty of others out there. Saatchi and Saatchi. Amazon's in the game now. It's going to, like almost everything else we talked about here today, it's going to require research to figure out whether it's worthwhile or not. But without getting into a long-winded answer on that, yes, you can. I think online galleries can add to, give you another distribution channel that you didn't have otherwise. So do your research, go after them, and you'll find that if you get a good fit, you'll find a place where you're selling some art that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Lee asked the question, how often should a represented artist contact the gallery owner to stay in touch but not be a nuisance? And that's a great question. I think that fits very well with kind of the theme. There are some galleries, and I think the short answer is that you should work to get a feel for what's the right amount of contact with your galleries as you build your relationship with them. Some galleries are less receptive to frequent communication, and in those cases you're going to back off a little bit. Some galleries are more receptive. You want to, same kind of concept we talked about before, is just finding that just right middle ground. I would say that for my gallery, every 6 weeks to 2 months, reaching out and being in touch, that would be kind of a minimum, that you just want to find out what's going on and see if there's anything that you can do to provide new artwork or be of service in some way. that the more you're in contact with the gallery owner, that the more you're keeping yourself kind of front and center in their in their consciousness, the more promotion you're going to get, the more excited they're going to be about your artwork. So you could kind of just, I would say, just kind of set that as a beginning framework, 6 to 8 weeks. And then get a feel, if with a particular gallery that starts to feel like too much, then you can back off of it a little bit. Or if you feel like with some galleries that their pace is quick, some of those galleries you might want to be in touch more frequently with them. You also would want to be conscious of their business cycle. I know a gallery in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which has just an insane season. It's just a couple of months long. End of July, August, and September. That's when they do most of their business. And I know an artist who shows in a gallery up there, and their communication to all of their artists is, don't even call us, don't email us, don't talk to us during those 3 months because we're just too busy. We'll get in touch with you once the season is over. We'll send you checks. That's how you'll know we're doing well. But otherwise, let's just touch base after the season's over.
That's a nice position for them to be in. Lee P. is asking, how much should an artist be willing to pay for the call to entry fee charged by some galleries? I'm not a big proponent of paying anything to be in a gallery that's charging you money. It sounds, I don't know the details there, but it sounds like it's on the cusp, if not directly in the pocket of being a vanity gallery that probably isn't in your long-term best interest to be in. Could be wrong about that, but I'd be suspect.
Yeah, I know there are some. There's a gallery here on Main Street in Scottsdale that has some shows that are in association with some of the big, oil painters of America, or that might not be the one that's in this particular, but they have association with Southwest Art and some of these other publications, and they'll do what they call their salon every year, and there is an entry fee for that, but they can justify that because they sell a lot of the work that is submitted. So I think my short answer to that would be to pay attention to those galleries and maybe try and talk to some of the artists who have participated in the shows in previous years, and find out if they felt like it was worth the cost of submission. That might not help you in the exact case that Lee's talking about, where it's a fee for consideration for showing in the gallery, but in essence, you've just got to feel like you're getting some value out of that entry fee, even if you don't end up being selected. That the chance to be selected is worth the value that you're paying to them, and I think, as Barney said, in a lot of cases that may not pan out to be worthwhile for you.
I see a question here from Tim Longwell, who's been a long-time supporter of both you and me, Jason, and he's asking a question that I actually had on my notes to bring up, so thanks for bringing it up, Tim. In working with galleries, does the artist need to consider having insurance to cover their work? Yes, there should be a contract in place that shows who is responsible for insuring the work. In transit, it's your responsibility in general. These conditions can change. While the work is in the gallery, it should be insured by the gallery, and it should be insured by the gallery when going back to the artist. And Jason may have a different arrangement than that, but making sure that your art is insured is just part of doing business in the smart way, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree with that, and that's exactly how we handle it at Xanadu. Again, your mileage may vary, and this is where, again, it's important to have open communication with the galleries, but also it's a good idea to have an open string of communication with your insurance agent. If you have your art business set up as a business, it behooves you to talk to a good commercial insurance agent and talk about your exposure in terms of your property and your liability, and also to talk about coverage for your artwork. And you know, what you may end up finding is that even if the galleries are covering your artwork, it still wouldn't hurt for you to have some coverage in place for your artwork in case something goes wrong with it, or even just to fight for that. You know, if there is an issue where a piece is damaged and a gallery is giving you some trouble over it, sometimes the insurance companies will pay out the claim and then go to work resolving the kind of going after the gallery or the gallery's insurance company to get reimbursed for that claim. So you know, I have long advocated, and I know Barney has as well, that you want to treat this as a business. And guess what? Businesses have insurance, and you know, you don't want to have too much insurance. You don't want to be needlessly paying overly exorbitant insurance fees. But on the other hand, you don't want to be undercovered. So you know, do some research, get some quotes on insurance, and find out about the ins and outs of what it costs to protect your artwork.
We're at the bewitching hour here.
Yeah, we are, and we've covered a lot of ground, but we've got a lot of questions that have come in that we didn't get a chance to get to this evening. But know that these broadcasts are ongoing. For those of you who aren't aware, Barney and I are here every second Tuesday. That's the magic combination, second Tuesday of every month. For these broadcasts, always with new topics, and know that we kind of keep an eye on all the questions that have come in, even the ones that we weren't able to get to in the broadcast. And a lot of times those questions may be inspiration for future broadcasts. So you know, don't feel like just because we didn't get to your question this time around that it was in vain that you asked it, because it may come up in a future topic. But it's always good to get together with you all and to talk a little bit about art and the business of art. Barney, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Anything, any last words or words of wisdom you want to throw out?
I need to do a little shameless self-promotion. If you can see the my name underneath it is a web address, barneydavey.com/designers, and if you want to go there, if you're interested in developing a new distribution channel by selling your work to interior designers, then I would encourage you to go to that web page and take a look at that the book that I've written with my good friend Dick Harrison, who spent 20 years as an artist rep selling to interior designers all over the state of Florida. So it's a very informative, easy to read book that should encourage you, if you're so inclined, to add interior designers to your product mix. We've been talking about galleries. Here's a whole other way to get your work out into the world.
Awesome. Well, and I can highly recommend the book and everything else that Barney's doing, and we're having a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to having you all in future broadcasts and keeping in touch. And as always, you can follow me through my blog, red.blog.com, or on Facebook, Jason Horejs. And what are the easiest ways for people to follow you, Barney?
Artprintissues.com is my blog. It's almost approaching 600 posts there. And then my website is barneydavey.com.
Awesome. Well, very good, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll look forward to having you in future broadcasts. We wish you all the very best of success, and keep hard at work. We'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy, buddy.